The cave was silent, only the sound of dripping water echoing in the darkness. A single human explorer walked deeper into the ruins, his boots crushing dust that had not been disturbed for centuries. His name was Marcus, a man who had seen many strange worlds, yet something about this place made his heart beat faster. The walls were carved with symbols he did not understand, glowing faintly with ancient light. It felt less like a ruin and more like a tomb made for something that should never be found again. Marcus carried a small lamp that flickered with every step. Shadows stretched across the stone like reaching hands. He laughed to himself, nervous and arrogant at the same time. So this is it, the great secret everyone warned me not to touch. He had heard the legend stories of a warrior sealed away, a weapon too dangerous to be left free. But Marcus did not believe in curses. He believed in treasure, in knowledge, in the thrill of claiming what others feared. At the center of the cavern, he finally saw her. A stone platform rose from the floor, and on it lay a figure, still as death. She looked almost human, though her armor was of alien design, black metal etched with red lines that pulsed faintly. As if alive, her face was calm, too calm, like a statue carved from pale stone. Long hair spilled across her shoulders, silver strands that shimmered faintly in the glow of his lamp. Her hands rested on her chest, one palm open as if waiting to hold a weapon, the other curled into a fist. Marcus stepped closer, his fear now hidden beneath a smile of mockery. So this is the warrior they all feared, a sleeping woman, frozen in time, he whispered, his voice echoing through the chamber. He leaned over her, studying her face. Some legend, she doesn't even look alive, just a corpse dressed for war. He chuckled, then laughed louder, the sound breaking the heavy silence of the cave. Look at you, he said, pointing at her still face. The mighty warrior of old. Nothing more than a dead body, a forgotten relic. But as the laugh left his lips, something changed. The air shifted, cold and heavy, as though the cave itself was holding its breath. The faint glow of her armor brightened, pulsing like a heartbeat. Marcus froze, his mocking smile faltering. Then, without warning, her eyes opened. They were not human eyes. They glowed a sharp, piercing gold, burning with fire and fury. Before Marcus could step back, her hand shot upward with terrifying speed. Her fingers, strong as steel, wrapped tightly around his throat. He gasped, the lamp slipping from his hand and clattering to the floor. Shadows danced wildly across the walls. The warrior rose, still gripping him, her movements smooth, deadly, unstoppable. Her hair shimmered as she stood tall, her armor glowing brighter with every second. Marcus struggled, clawing at her hand. But her grip only tightened, her eyes locked on his, unblinking, merciless. For the first time in his life, Marcus felt truly powerless. You dare! Her voice was low, harsh, echoing as if carried by more than one tongue. Her words shifted, twisting until they formed in his language. You dare mock me, little human, Marcus choked, unable to reply. His arrogance shattered in an instant. The cave rumbled, dust falling from the ceiling. As though the world itself feared her awakening, she pulled him closer, her golden eyes burning into his. For centuries I slept, she hissed, waiting for the moment my enemy would return. Her grip tightened further, and Marcus felt the world growing dark. You have woken me, and now you will pay the price. Marcus kicked against the stone floor, desperate for air. His hands shook as he tried to pry her fingers loose, but her strength was beyond anything human. Her presence filled the chamber like a storm, a power both ancient and alive. The mocking laughter that had filled the cave moments ago was gone, replaced with the sound of Marcus choking for life. Her voice rose, louder now, filled with fury. No man laughs at the warrior of Zirin, she declared, her words cutting through the silence like a blade. Her hair shimmered in the glow of her armor, her body trembling with the force of her own return. She leaned closer, her lips almost brushing his ear. I am no corpse human, she whispered. I am death. The cave shook again, rocks falling around them. Marcus's vision blurred as the pressure on his throat grew unbearable. The last thing he saw before darkness claimed him was her face, alive, burning with wrath. Her eyes glowed brighter, her grip unyielding. The warrior had awakened, and she would not return to sleep. Marcus lay on the cold stone floor, coughing as air finally returned to his lungs. His throat burned where her fingers had gripped him, and every breath felt like fire. Above him, the warrior stood tall, her golden eyes glowing like two suns trapped in the shadows of the cave. Her armor pulsed with faint red light, alive, breathing. As though it remembered a war that ended centuries ago, she looked down at Marcus not as if he were a man, but as if he were prey. "You are not the one I expected," she said slowly, her voice strange and sharp, shifting from alien tones to human words. "But you have woken me, and for that, you are mine." Her words struck him harder than her grip, and Marcus felt fear crawl through his veins. He tried to speak, his voice broken. I didn't mean to." She silenced him with a look, her gaze colder than stone. Her hair, silver like moonlight, moved as though touched by invisible winds. Every part of her seemed too alive, too dangerous, too untouchable. Marcus pushed himself to his knees, clutching his chest. "I'm just an explorer," he said, his tone trembling but desperate. "I didn't know this place was real. I was only searching for answers." The warrior tilted her head, her expression unreadable. "Answers," she whispered. "You will have them, but answers demand a price." The cave trembled again, a low rumble beneath their feet. Marcus flinched, but the warrior did not move. Her body rigid, her eyes fixed on the darkness deeper. "Within the ruins, the seal is broken," she said, her voice low, filled with anger and sorrow. "You have unleashed what was never meant to rise again." Marcus felt his blood run cold. What do you mean?" he asked, his words shaking. The warrior's eyes narrowed, her voice cutting through him. "There was a war, long before your kind set foot in the stars," she said. "I was sworn to guard this tomb, to hold back the enemy sealed here, to keep him from waking." Her hand clenched into a fist, the air around her trembling with invisible force. "I failed once," she said, her voice heavy with grief. "And my people paid the price." Her golden eyes locked on Marcus. "I will not fail again, not because of you." Marcus shook his head, trying to understand. "You think I freed something worse than you?" he asked. The warrior stepped closer, her presence overwhelming. "Not worse," she whispered. "The true enemy." The ground shook harder now, dust falling from the ceiling. Marcus's lamp flickered on the floor, casting wild shadows across the cavern. In the distance, a sound echoed deep, metallic, like machines waking from endless sleep. The warrior's eyes narrowed, her body tense like a drawn blade. "They are coming," she said, her voice sharp. "His servants, the guardians of the dark." Marcus felt panic clawing at his chest. "What do we do?" he asked, his voice cracking. The warrior turned to him, her expression fierce. "You will walk with me, human, bound by your mistake." She grabbed his arm, pulling him to his feet with unnatural strength. "You have woken me, and now you will march where I command." Marcus wanted to resist, but her grip was unbreakable. Her eyes burned into his, leaving no room for defiance. He knew then that he was no longer an explorer, no longer free. He was her prisoner, caught in the web of something far greater than his greed for discovery. They began moving deeper into the ruins, the sound of metallic claws scraping against stone echoing closer and closer. The warrior walked ahead, her silver hair glowing faintly in the darkness, her every step filled with power. Marcus stumbled behind, his thoughts racing. What had he unleashed? What slept in the shadows beyond this chamber? The deeper they went, the louder the sounds became. Heavy footsteps, grinding gears, voices that were not voices but cold echoes of machines. Marcus's fear grew, but strangely, so did something else, a small spark of curiosity, a desperate desire to know the truth. Who was she really? And what enemy could terrify even a warrior like her? As the shadows moved closer, the warrior raised her head, her eyes glowing brighter. "Stay silent, human," she ordered, her voice calm but unyielding. "Watch and remember." She raised her hand, and the red lines across her armor flared like fire. The darkness trembled, as though afraid of her return. Marcus swallowed hard, his heart racing. He had laughed at the sleeping warrior, mocked her as a relic of the past. But now, walking in her shadow, he realized the truth. She was no relic. No corpse, no myth. She was alive and she was deadly, and the nightmare she spoke of was just beginning. The tunnels stretched endlessly, carved by hands long dead. Symbols glowed faintly on the walls, whispering of battles fought before Marcus's ancestors even knew the stars. The air grew colder with every step, and the weight of silence pressed on him like a stone. Only the warrior's presence broke the darkness, her glowing eyes guiding the path. Her armor alive with red light, Marcus stumbled behind her, his throat still sore, his mind racing with questions he dared not ask. He was trapped between fear and curiosity, every part of him screaming to escape, yet something inside urging him forward. Finally he spoke, his voice shaking. Who are you really?" The warrior stopped, her silver hair catching the dim glow, her shoulders straight as a blade. "I am Zira," she said, her voice carrying both pride and sorrow. "Last of the Crimson Guard, sworn to protect this world, sworn to fight until my oath is complete." Marcus blinked, confused. "Guard? Protect what? This cave? These ruins?" Her gaze turned sharp, her golden eyes piercing through him. "Not the ruins. Human. The prison," she whispered, her words heavy like chains. "This place holds more than stone. It holds the shadow of a war that nearly consumed the galaxy." Her voice grew colder as she continued. "My people trusted the humans once long ago," she said. "But when the enemy came, your kind chose survival over honor. You left us to burn." Marcus froze, her words cutting deep. "That's not true," he stammered. "I never. You are your blood." She snapped, silencing him. "Humans betrayed the oath, and for that, I was bound here, to guard against what their cowardice unleashed." Marcus's fists tightened, anger mixing with fear. "I'm not them," he said, his voice trembling, but firm. "I don't even know that war. I don't know what happened." Zyra's expression did not change, but her eyes lingered on him a moment longer than before. She turned away, her voice low, almost to herself. "Perhaps, but blood remembers, and I remember every face, every cry, every fire." The tunnel opened into a wider chamber, broken statues lying in pieces. At the center stood a shattered altar, its surface cracked, glowing with a faint red light. Zira touched it gently, her armor pulsing in response. "This was the oath," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I swore never to rest, never to yield, until the enemy was destroyed." Marcus watched her, seeing not just fury, but a weight of centuries pressing down on her shoulders. She had not chosen this life, she had been chained to it. "Why still fight?" he asked quietly. "Why not let it go?" "The war is over." Her head snapped toward him, eyes burning. "Over?" she said, her voice rising. "You fool. Wars do not end because one side falls silent. They end when the enemy is ash beneath our feet." Before Marcus could reply, the ground trembled again, louder this time, from the shadows metallic shapes stirred, tall as towers, their eyes glowing red. Machines built for war, ancient guardians rising from their slumber. Their voices screeched like grinding metal, echoing through the chamber. "Intruders," the machines hissed, their claws scraping stone as they advanced. Marcus's heart pounded, panic rising. He reached for his blaster, but his hands shook. "Stay behind me," Zira ordered, her voice steady, unyielding. Her armor flared, the red lines burning like fire across her chest and arms. She raised her hand, and a blade of pure light formed, glowing with the same energy as her eyes. The machines charged, their steps shaking the ground. Marcus fired his blaster, the shots sparking uselessly against their armored shells. But Zira moved like a storm, her blade slicing through metal as if it were paper. Her movements were flawless. Her strikes precise, each machine falling in sparks and screams of steel. Marcus could only watch, his fear mixing with awe. She was not just a warrior, she was destruction given form. When the last machine fell, silence filled the chamber again, broken only by Marcus's heavy breathing. Zira stood in the center, her blade fading back into light, her chest rising and falling with calm strength. She looked at him, her expression unreadable. "You see now why I was chosen," she said quietly. "I am bound to this fight, and so are you. Until your mistake is paid for." Marcus shook his head, his voice rising with desperation. "I didn't mean for this. I didn't want to wake anything." Her eyes narrowed, her voice sharp as steel. "Intent does not matter, only consequence," she said. "You mocked the warrior, and now you are part of the oath." Marcus stared at her, his fear deepening. "What do you mean, part of the oath?" he asked, his voice almost breaking. She stepped closer, her shadow falling over him, her voice low, final. "You are my prisoner, human, and together we march into the dark." From deeper in the tunnels, a new sound rose, heavier, darker. It was not the sound of machines, but something older, something alive. Zira's golden eyes flickered with a mix of fury and dread. She turned toward the shadows, her hand tightening into a fist. "The enemy stirs," she whispered, her voice shaking with restrained rage. "And this time, I will not face it alone." The tunnels grew wider, stretching into vast halls filled with broken pillars and shattered walls. Marcus followed Zira, his breath loud in his own ears, his eyes darting to every shadow. The silence between them was heavy, only the faint hum of her armor filling the air. He wanted to speak, to demand answers, but each time he looked at her glowing eyes, he felt his words die in his throat. The ground trembled again, soft at first, then stronger, like footsteps shaking the world. Marcus froze, his hand instinctively reaching for his blaster. Zira raised her arm, signaling him to stay still, her golden eyes narrowing as she scanned the darkness ahead. "They are awake," she whispered, her voice sharp and steady. "The servants of the enemy." From the far end of the hall, shadows moved, tall and twisted, metal fused with bone. Their forms more nightmare than machine. Their glowing red eyes burned like fire in the darkness. One by one they stepped forward, their movements slow but unstoppable. Each carried weapons fused into their arms, blades, claws, and strange cannons that hummed with deadly power. Marcus's throat tightened. "What are those things?" he whispered. Zira's voice was cold. "They are the shadows of the past, forged to protect the prison. They know only war, only killing." The creatures roared, the sound metallic and monstrous, echoing through the chamber. The ground shook as they began to advance, their claws scraping stone, their voices screeching in unison. Marcus fired first, his blaster flashing blue light into the dark. The shot hit one of the machines square in the chest, but it barely slowed, sparks flying before the creature pressed forward. "Your weapons are weak," Zira said, stepping in front of him, her armor glowing brighter. She raised her hand, and once again a blade of light erupted. Humming with raw energy, the first machine lunged, claws swiping. Zira met it head-on, her blade cutting clean through metal and bone. The creature collapsing in sparks and smoke. Another leapt from the side, its cannon charging, but she spun with inhuman speed, slicing it apart before it could fire. Her movements were like a storm, graceful, precise, and merciless. Marcus backed away, firing desperately at the edges of the swarm. His shots barely slowed them, but a few fell under his fire, their cores shattered by lucky strikes. Still, the enemy pressed forward, more and more of them rising from the shadows. Marcus's panic grew. There were too many. Zira fought without hesitation, but even she was being pushed back. Her blade cut down one, then another, sparks flying around her like fire. Yet for every machine that fell, two more appeared, their screeches filling the air. "Keep moving," she shouted, her voice commanding. Marcus stumbled after her as she carved a path through the swarm. The ground cracked beneath their feet. Broken by the sheer weight of the battle, stone fell from the ceiling, dust filling the air. Marcus coughed. His lungs burning, but he kept running, his blaster flashing wildly. One of the creatures lunged at him from the side. Claws raised, Marcus fired. But his weapon jammed, his heart stopping in his chest. Before the claws could tear him apart, Zira appeared. Her blade slicing the creature clean in half, she shoved Marcus forward, her voice sharp with fury. "Stay close, or you will not live to see the next hour." Her grip on his arm was iron, unyielding, dragging him through the chaos. Finally, after what felt like endless fighting, they reached another tunnel. Zira slammed her hand against the wall, the stone shifting. Glowing symbols unlocking the hidden door. It slid open with a thunderous sound, and she pushed Marcus inside before stepping through herself. The door sealed behind them, cutting off the screeches of the machines. Leaving only silence, Marcus collapsed against the wall, gasping for air, sweat running down his face. His hands shook as he looked at Zira, still standing tall, her armor glowing faintly, her face unreadable. "You saved me," he said, his voice weak, almost disbelieving. Her eyes flickered toward him, cold but not as merciless as before. "I saved myself," she replied. "You just happened to still be in my shadow." Marcus looked away, shame mixing with frustration. But deep inside, he knew he would have died without her. He studied her as she stood silently, her blade gone, her armor dimming as though resting. For the first time, he wondered if she was truly his captor, or if something deeper tied their fates together. The tunnel they now stood in was different. Narrower but filled with strange carvings glowing faintly in blue. Marcus reached out to touch one, but Zira slapped his hand away, her voice sharp. "Do not touch what you do not understand," she warned. "These walls hold memories, records of the war. They are not for you." Marcus's frustration boiled over. "I deserve to know." He snapped, his voice louder than he meant. "I woke you. I fought beside you. I nearly died. You can't keep me blind." Zira's eyes burned as she turned to him, her voice low but deadly. "You mock what you cannot grasp. Human, but soon you will see. Soon you will understand what it means to fight a war that never ended." The tunnel rumbled again. Faint but clear, something was moving deeper inside. Not metal this time, but heavier, darker, alive. Zira's expression shifted, a shadow of anger mixed with something like fear. She whispered, more to herself than to him. "The true enemy wakes." Marcus shivered, his fear returning. If the machines were only shadows of the past, what was coming now? Asterisk. The tunnel stretched on like an endless scar through the earth, its walls glowing faintly with shifting blue light. Marcus followed Zira in silence, his mind heavy with questions, his throat dry from fear and dust. Every step echoed, reminding him that they were deep inside something older than both their worlds combined. The air grew colder, carrying a weight of sorrow, as though the walls themselves remembered pain. Finally, they reached a chamber unlike the others. It was vast, circular, its walls covered in ancient carvings, glowing symbols twisting like fire. Across stone, in the center stood a broken device, its surface cracked but still alive, humming with energy. Zira stopped before it, her golden eyes locked on the machine, her face hard and unreadable. Marcus stepped closer, curiosity pushing against his fear. "What is this place?" he asked quietly. Zira's voice was sharp, steady. "The archive," she said. "A place where truth is carved in light, unchanging, eternal." Her hand touched the cracked device, and the chamber blazed with sudden life. Images burst into the air, ghosts of the past made from light and sound. Marcus gasped as he saw battles unfold, warriors like Zira fighting endless waves of enemies. He saw fire raining from the skies, cities burning, and entire worlds consumed in war. Among the chaos he saw humans. They fought beside Zira's people at first, standing shoulder to shoulder. But then, the images shifted, showing ships breaking away, human commanders signing secret pacts. He saw humans abandoning the battlefield, leaving the Crimson Guard to die alone. Zira's voice was low, heavy with fury. "This was your betrayal," she said, her golden eyes burning. "Your kind promised loyalty. And when the enemy came, you chose survival. You chose to run." Marcus shook his head, his chest tightening. "No," he whispered. "That can't be the full truth." But the visions continued. Sharper now, he saw Zira herself, standing tall, arguing with her own leaders, refusing to abandon the fight. He saw them turning on her, binding her in chains of light, sealing her away. Her voice trembled as she watched her own memory. "My people betrayed me as well," she whispered, almost to herself. "They used me as a weapon, and when I refused their command, they locked me here to guard the prison, cursed to fight forever." Marcus's stomach twisted, the truth hitting him harder than any battle. It wasn't just humans who had betrayed her, it was her own kind too. "You were punished for trying to do the right thing," he said softly. Zira's eyes flickered, but her face remained hard. "I was punished because I refused to kneel," she said, her voice sharp. "I would not abandon the oath, even when all others fled." The chamber dimmed as the visions faded, leaving only the sound of the broken device humming faintly. Marcus looked at her, his fear mixing now with something else. Pity, admiration, even respect. "You've carried this alone for centuries," he said, his voice low. Zira turned toward him, her gaze sharp as ever. "I do not need your pity, human," she said. "I need your strength. For the war has not ended." Marcus frowned, his confusion growing. "What war?" "These ruins are dead. Your people are gone. The enemy must be gone too." Zira shook her head, her silver hair catching the faint light. "No," she said, her voice heavy with certainty. "The enemy was never destroyed, only sealed, and the seal is broken now, because of you." Before Marcus could reply, the ground trembled violently. From deeper in the ruins came a roar, not metallic this time, but alive, furious, ancient. The walls shook, dust falling in thick clouds. Zira's face hardened, her eyes glowing brighter. "He wakes," she whispered, her voice almost trembling with rage. "The one I was sworn to guard against, the warlord who commanded the machines, the shadow that devoured worlds." Marcus felt his blood run cold. "You mean he's alive?" he asked, his voice cracking. Zira nodded once, her expression grim. "He was never killed, only bound, and I was his jailer, now freed by your arrogance." The roar came again, closer now, shaking the chamber. Marcus stumbled, fear twisting inside him. "What do we do?" he asked desperately. Zira turned to him, her golden eyes burning with fire. "We fight," she said simply, her blade of light forming once more in her hand. "And this time I will not fail." Marcus's heart pounded as he looked at her. She was no longer just his captor, no longer just a relic of the past. She was a warrior chained by betrayal, a soldier carrying a burden greater than any human could imagine. And now, because of him, she would face the enemy again. The chamber shook harder, the roar echoing through stone. Zira raised her blade, her voice sharp as steel. "Stay at my side, human," she ordered. "Your fate is bound to mine now, and the truth you seek lies in the fire of battle." Marcus swallowed hard, fear and determination mixing in his chest. The broken truth had been revealed, and with it came a terrible weight. The enemy was awake. The oath was alive, and there would be no turning back. The roar grew louder, filling the tunnels like a storm breaking against stone. Marcus felt his chest tighten, his knees weak, as though the sound alone carried weight. Zira stood tall in the center of the chamber, her blade of light glowing bright, her eyes burning with golden fire. "This is it," she said, her voice calm but heavy. "The warlord stirs." The walls cracked, dust raining down, ancient symbols sparking to life before shattering. From the darkness ahead came a pulse of red light, strong, alive, furious. The ground split, stone bursting upward as a massive figure rose from the earth. Marcus stumbled back, his breath caught in his throat. The warlord towered above them. His body a fusion of flesh and metal, ancient armor fused to bone. His face was hidden behind a jagged mask, glowing red eyes burning through the cracks. Every step he took shook the chamber. Every movement carried the weight of endless violence. His voice boomed, deep and sharp, echoing like thunder. Who dares break the seal? Zira stepped forward, blade raised, her voice strong and unshaken. I do, she said. Zyra of the Crimson Guard, your jailer, your end. The warlord's laughter shook the walls, deep and mocking. You still live, warrior? I thought. Your oath would have broken your soul by now. Marcus's heart pounded, fear threatening to consume him. This was no machine, no shadow. This was something alive, intelligent, full of hate. He gripped his blaster tightly, though he knew it would be like throwing stones at a mountain. Still, he refused to stand idle, not after everything. The warlord lifted his massive clawed hand, and the walls split open. Dozens of twisted machines poured out. Smaller than him, but still deadly, their eyes glowing red. The chamber filled with screeches of metal and sparks of fire. Zira spun her blade in her hand, her voice sharp. Stay behind me, human, or you will not last a breath. The machines charged, their claws tearing the ground, their weapons sparking with deadly energy. Zira leapt forward, striking the first down in a single slash, sparks exploding around her. She moved like lightning, her blade cutting through the swarm, her armor glowing brighter with every strike. Marcus fired his blaster desperately, each shot barely enough to drop one enemy. But he kept shooting, refusing to run. The warlord watched, his laughter filling the air as his army clashed. You fight well, old warrior, he said, but you are nothing against me, nothing against eternity. Zira ignored his words, her face set in stone, her strikes fueled by fury and memory. She cut down another, then another, her voice rising above the chaos. This ends now, no more chains, no more prisons. Marcus felt something shift inside him, for the first time. He wasn't just watching her fight, he was part of it. He shouted, drawing the fire of one of the machines. Rolling aside as its cannon fired, he shot at its weak point, hitting the glowing core, and the machine exploded in a burst of sparks. For a brief moment, Zira's eyes flickered toward him, not with scorn, but with acknowledgement. The battle raged, machines falling one after another, but the warlord still stood untouched. Finally, he stepped forward, his massive claws scraping the stone, his voice thundering. Enough, little guard. I will tear your oath from your bones. He swung his arm, the strike like a hammer of steel. Zira blocked, her blade clashing against his claws, the impact shaking the chamber. The force threw Marcus back, slamming him against the wall. Pain exploding in his chest, he gasped for air. Watching as warrior and warlord locked in battle, the ground cracked beneath their clash. Sparks flying, light and shadow colliding with every strike. The warlord's strength was overwhelming, his blows heavy, his body unyielding. But Zira fought with fire, her blade faster, sharper, her will unbroken. You should have stayed asleep, he growled, pressing her down. I will finish what I began. Zira's eyes blazed brighter, her voice rising with fury. No, she shouted. This time I am not alone. Her strike flared with golden light, forcing the warlord back a single step. Marcus, trembling, lifted his blaster again, aiming at the glowing cracks in the warlord's armor. He fired, the shot striking true, sparks bursting from the wound. The warlord roared, his voice shaking the chamber, his rage boiling like fire. Zira seized the moment, pressing her attack, her blade slashing against his armor, leaving glowing scars. But even wounded, the warlord was far from beaten. He spread his arms, power surging through the ruins, red light bursting from every wall. The chamber quaked, machines rising again from the ground, countless more than before. Marcus's eyes widened, his voice breaking. There's too many, we can't fight them all. Zira gritted her teeth, her blade humming with energy. There is one way, she said, her voice sharp. The chamber shook like a living beast, cracks racing through the stone as the warlord's power filled the air. The red glow burned across the walls. Machines rose endlessly from the floor, their claws screeching, their eyes alive with fury. Marcus felt his body tremble, his blaster shaking in his hands, yet he did not drop it. Not now. Zira stood before him, her golden eyes blazing, her blade humming with light, her voice steady and sharp. The oath demands blood, mine and yours. Only together can we bind him. Marcus stared at her, his breath caught in his throat. You mean, we have to die? He asked, his voice breaking. Zira's face softened for the first time, just a shadow of sorrow flashing across her sharp features. Not death, she said, but sacrifice. The bond will chain him, and it will chain us too. Our lives will never be free again. The warlord's laughter filled the chamber, thunder rolling through stone. Yes, bleed together, lock yourselves in chains, and I will break them as I broke you before. His massive claws scraped the floor, his steps shaking the earth, the machines roaring at his side. He lifted his head, his red eyes burning like fire. You cannot stop eternity. Marcus's heart pounded, fear screaming inside him. Yet another voice rose louder, a voice that remembered her saving him, a voice that saw her fight against betrayal in chains, a voice that refused to abandon her. He clenched his jaw, his voice trembling but strong. Then I choose it. If this is the only way, I'll stand with you. Zira's golden eyes flickered, something sharp breaking into something almost human. She gave the faintest nod, her blade rising higher, her voice like steel. Then together we fight. The machine surged forward, an endless tide of claws and metal. Zira moved like lightning, her blade slicing through them. Sparks and fire raining across the chamber. Marcus fought at her side, his blaster flashing, each shot finding its mark, his fear turning into desperate resolve. For every machine that fell, two more rose. But still they fought, back to back. Two souls bound in fire. The warlord stepped forward, his massive form filling the chamber, his claws raised high. He swung, a strike heavy enough to shatter stone. Zira leapt, her blade catching the blow, sparks bursting as steel met light. Marcus fired at the glowing cracks in the warlord's armor, his shots burning into red flesh. The warlord roared, his voice a storm of rage, the ground splitting beneath them. Zira shouted above the chaos, her voice sharp. Now human, give me your hand. Marcus stumbled toward her, his blaster dropping as he reached out, his hand trembling. She gripped it tight, their blood mixing as her blade sliced across their palms. The oath awakened, light exploding around them. Golden fire wrapped their bodies, swirling into chains of light that reached for the warlord. The machines screamed, their bodies burning into ash as the power spread. The warlord roared, his claws thrashing, his red eyes blazing with hate. Nitrogen monoxide, he bellowed. You will not bind me again. But the chains tightened, wrapping around his arms, his chest, his mask, burning into his flesh. He struggled, each movement shaking the chamber, but the light did not break. Zira's voice rose, filled with fury and strength. By the oath of the Crimson Guard, by blood and by fire you are bound. Marcus felt the light sear through him, pain and power surging like fire in his veins. He screamed, but he did not let go, his hand locked with hers, his will unbroken. The warlord's body shook, his voice breaking into a roar of fury and fear. The chains pulled tighter, dragging him down, binding him once more into the prison. The ground split open, light pouring through as the warlord was swallowed. His scream echoed through stone, through time, until finally silence fell. The machines collapsed into ash, the red glow fading, the chamber dimming into shadow. Marcus fell to his knees, gasping for air, his body trembling, his chest burning. Zira stood over him, her blade gone, her armor dim, her eyes still glowing faintly with golden fire. He looked up at her, his voice weak. Did we win? Zira's gaze lingered on the broken chamber, on the sealed cracks glowing faintly in the stone. For now, she said quietly. The warlord sleeps again. The chains hold, but only as long as we do. Marcus frowned, confusion in his eyes. What do you mean? She knelt beside him, her voice soft but heavy with truth. Our blood bound him, human. Your life and mine are now tied to his prison. If we fall, he rises. Marcus's chest tightened, the weight of her words crashing down. He looked into her golden eyes, glowing faint but steady. So, I can never leave, he whispered. You are part of the oath now, she replied, her hand resting lightly on his shoulder. Your laughter woke me. Your choice chained us. Your fate is mine. Marcus felt both dread and strange pride rise in him. He had mocked her once, called her a corpse, but now he was bound to her. A warrior of a war that would never end. Zira stood, helping him to his feet, her eyes watching the shadows of the chamber. She whispered, almost to herself, perhaps humanity is not only betrayal. Marcus gripped his blaster again, his voice steady now. Then let's keep fighting. The chamber was silent, but in that silence lay the promise of endless war, endless watch, endless defiance. Two souls, one oath, bound forever against the darkness and in the shadows. The last spark of the warlord's red eyes flickered once more, final. But it will cost more than you are ready to pay. Marcus stared at her, his fear colliding with the fire in his chest. What do you mean? He demanded, her eyes locked on his, glowing with fierce light. The oath can bind him again, but it requires blood, sacrifice, more than one soul. Marcus's breath caught, his heart pounding. The warlord's laughter filled the chamber. Again, his voice a storm of hate. Yes, guard, sacrifice yourself again. And this time I will break you forever. Zira raised her blade, her eyes never leaving Marcus's. This is our choice, human, yours and mine.